Hi, welcome to another edition of IP Somm. I'm Heather Boyd, owner and proprietor of Pillar IP, and my guest today is LINDSEY GIBEAU. She is a personal brand photographer. So LINDSEY, I'd really like it if you could tell us what personal brand photography is all about and tell us a little bit about your company and everything.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a photographer here in Ottawa. I work at a Westboro studio and I specialize in personal branding photography. So it's a little bit more in depth than I also do headshots than your typical headshot. So you not only get a photo of yourself, but you're promoting who it is you are and what it is your business does. So often I meet with a client and we discuss a series of stories that we're going to share because it's all about sharing their story. So that might be, them in a typical work day. That might be them working with their client. It might be photos of them with their product. So it really depends what the client is offering and who their ideal client is. And we're kind of really trying to show the personality of them so people want to work with them.
Right. So when you're doing that, you're actually helping the personal brand photography. You're looking at their website, their brand. You've talked to them about what their personality is like, what kind of messaging they want to get out. And then you also do hair and makeup?
Yes, well, I don't personally, but I have some fabulous makeup artists that usually meet us on site, get you looking glam before your shoot, or as much glam as you want.
Yeah.
I call it the pre-warm-up show. It gets them out feeling good before the shoot and looking good and confident.
That's awesome. Do you also serve wine at your shoots?
Yes, we do.
Because I serve wine here. And today we're going to continue our conversation with a Featherstone Estate rosé because LINDSEY chose to have a rosé today. I always let my guests choose what we're drinking. Kelvin clasp, really easy to open. Don't use a bottle opener on that one. So a rosé is generally, it's not necessarily white wine grapes or red wine grapes. Sometimes it's a blush between the two of them. Or it's red wine grapes that have just been left on the lees, so that's skin contact, in the maturation bin for a very small amount of time versus what you would do for a red wine and let it sit on the lees for a long time.
Okay.
Thanks for being my guest here. Today's topic, what I call personality rights or publicity rights, and who owns the copyright in photographs that are taken by a professional photograph for people. So,
okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Nice raspberry, kind of strawberry notes on that. Let me ask you this, LINDSEY. You have, I'm assuming, a contract that you have your clients sign. You've been commissioned to take their photographs.
Right. So mine's a little different. I have, whenever I produce their online gallery, so it's a private online gallery, they get the secret password too and they log in. So it's actually when they're selecting their photos.
Okay.
They select their photos, they go to purchase them or add them to their cart. And then there's a contract there saying that I maintain the copyrights to the images and that any purchased, they have the usage rights to.
Okay, so if you can explain to our people watching what you mean by usage rights.
For sure. So when a client purchases an image from me, I remain the copyright holder, so I can use his images as well, but they can use them for their website, LinkedIn, Instagram, basically on anything that is for their personal brand. So they can't necessarily sell it to a company for profit and the other company is going to benefit from it in an advertorial sense, but they do have the rights to use them personally on any platform.
Okay, does it specify in your contract that they can't sell them to a third party for the purposes of, promoting something other than their personality rights?
So I don't go into detail, maybe I should, but I believe it says for commercial use, please contact photographer.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about personality rights. So everyone who exists has what we call personality rights or publicity rights. That means you have the right to say who can use your personal image for the purposes of making money. Now, as we were talking about off camera, that generally extends more prominently to celebrities, influencers, professional athletes, politicians, who else? Models, people who actually make money off of their public persona. The average person who owns a company isn't necessarily making money off of their personal persona. So their personality rights may be diminished somewhat. But when you're selling them a copyrighted image, so you've taken a photograph of someone, so you have copyright in that because you're the originating author of that work of art. And every photographer is an artist, but they also own copyright as soon as they take the photograph. And it lasts for 70 years now. Legislation changed in Canada. It's now 70 years beyond the death of the author from December 31st of the year of death on. Okay. So for 70 years, no one else is entitled to use or profit from that copyrighted work.
Right.
But you have extended rights to use for their personal benefit. And depending on who you're selling it to, they may actually be able to sell those. Not necessarily sell them, but offer them for other people to use because it helps build their brand.
Right. Yes.
So if they're not getting paid for it, then that's not necessarily considered commercial use. So you really want to, depending on, it'll be case by case, but depending on the person that you're dealing with, you may want to have that contract revised for different people, depending on what you think that they're going to use it for. Because the last thing you want is to have someone come in and get you to take fantastic photos and then them sell them to an ad agency who's going to use them.
Exactly.
Right.
And that would, yeah.
So let's talk about how you use photography. So you've retained all of the copyright rights in that, which means that anyone who comes to LINDSEY, they commission you to take their photograph. You are still entitled to use that in terms of your contract, to use that for the promotion of your business, right?
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about how you do that with your clients.
For sure. So I usually have in that same contract at the end, I just have that your image may be used for personal advertising in my company. If there's a problem with that, please let me know in a written email or verbally. So of course, if a client asks, I don't want my photo to be seen, and it's happened before, especially if children's are involved or just for special circumstances, but I 100%.
Like you happen to be in the witness protection program or something.
Exactly. So I don't use the image, of course. I make a big bold note to myself and just hope to God I remember, because I would hate to do that to a client, not remember and a year later post it. So I usually make lots of post-it notes and highlights in their file and make sure I don't.
So you also do a lot of photography for events, right?
Yes, I do.
Now, is it you or is it the event that creates the waiver that people sign when they attend for those?
So it's not me, it would be the company. So normally when I'm hired to do events, they, not a lot, but some of them will have like a big sign when I enter in and saying this conference is being photographed, your image may be used. A lot of the times I don't see that big sign, so I'm assuming that the guests have signed some kind of form online when they've signed up.
But I would beg you to just make sure that the events that you're working at actually have those waivers. You want to see it in advance to see what it says.
Okay.
Because you want to protect your rights in there and make sure that you are protected through liability as well. So it's always, as a due diligence, if you're a photographer and you're doing an event, make sure that the event has the waiver, and if they don't, bring your own waiver and make sure everybody signs it. Or at least a notice that you were hired by the event to take these photos and they may be used, blah, 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 blah. As long as people are given public awareness, that means they can contact you, and make sure you put your contact details on there if they don't want their pictures used. Okay. So that protects you as well. Okay. Do you have any other questions about how you use people's photographs?
Yeah, for sure. Like, so when in my form, I say for personal publication, but a lot of the times I'm contacted by like magazines and can I use that image, whether it be like a wedding couple. So, and I usually, well, 100% always contact the couple and say like, are you okay with this? Does a photographer legally need to make sure it has written permission from its subject?
It's going to be case by case situation. For a company a third party company that's contacting you for a photograph, first and foremost, you should be asking them if they're going to be giving you commercial benefit for it. So, because you're not going to hand over your photographs if you're not going to get recognized for the work that you put in.
Right.
So, you've mentioned before that you've sold your pictures to third parties or other third parties have used this, and it's got your watermark in there. So, it can point back to the source of the work or the author of the work.
Exactly.
And while that may be sufficient, if they're using your photographs and they've taken them and they're financially getting a gain from them, it's unauthorized use, whether it's got your watermark on it or not. You are entitled to the sole use and profit of your intellectual property.
Okay.
So you can decide whether promotion of your company is good enough. And if it's just the watermark that shows up there, it's not going to be good enough because people are going to they won't look as closely at that as if there's the picture and it says picture taken by so-and-so and here's your contact details.
And 100% of the time there's usually no contact. It says photo by LINDSEY.
Yeah. So,
or even actually, when I was at Blues Fest a few years ago, I had taken a beautiful shot of one of the performers. And the Vancouver Sun published it without asking. And I was like, I wonder. I was excited to see my photo when I searched it online one day, so I never followed up, but I often thought, like,
did they give you credit for it?
Yeah, it said.
Okay, because news is a little bit different. They can do that as long as they give you credit.
Okay.
Sort of, again, case by case.
Because
they're probably not making money off of it. But there's the back end side of that in that they're probably taking this picture, saying, giving you credit for it, but then also promoting another event that they're maybe sponsoring in Vancouver by using your pictures. So everything is a case by case scenario when it comes to IP. So let's go back and we'll talk about moral rights.
Okay.
Are you aware of what moral rights are?
I would love a explanation.
Okay. So every copyrighted work in Canada has what we call moral rights. So that's the right of the author to be able to say how and when they want their art used, in what manner, what form, that kind of thing. So, and in Canada, when you assign your rights over to someone to use your copyrighted work, your photograph, so if you sell a photograph to a bride, perhaps. And the bride then decides that you said she can use it for personal use in any way, shape, or form. So she decides that she's going to maybe not make money off it, but give it to a porn site to use for Brides Gone Good or something. I don't know. If you see that, you retain moral rights. You can never assign or sell the moral rights in the photography. So because your name is attached to that forever and always, that photograph. Right. So you have the right to say, no, I'm sorry, you cannot put it up there, or it has to be taken down immediately, or you can't make money off of that, or any money you make off that is mine.
Okay.
Because it may offend you. But most of the time you just want it removed from that situation because you have moral rights in that. But yes, it's a little bit of a difference in Canada versus the US. The US, when you assign or sell the copyrighted work, you're also assigning and selling the moral rights to that as well. But in Canada, you always retain those rights.
Okay. Let's just say you're working, so I'm self-employed, so I don't need to worry about this. But if a photographer is working for a company and they are on salary doing work and they've, photographed, let's just say a headshot for someone, does the company or the photographer keep the copyrights?
So generally copyright is, you can be retained for the purposes of creating copyright. So that's where a company puts you on a salary or contracts with you to create something. Then the company owns that. But as the photographer, you are the artist and you retain the moral rights in that.
Okay.
So you would always retain the moral rights, but the company in that case would likely own the copyright.
Okay.
But again, case by case, it all depends on what the fine print is.
Okay.
So thanks for joining us. I hope you learned something. I know I did.
I did too.
If you like what you saw here, please like, share, comment below, and follow us. And just remember, we're not lawyers. We're just sipping wine and talking IP. Cheers.